Yeah,
Hey everybody,
cool.
welcome to episode number 4 of the Five Tool Show with the two Joes. And tonight we have an amazing guest, and I'm going to let the other Joe introduce this gentleman. And I'm really happy about this. But go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Joe, man, this is going to be fun. Ryan Fagan, senior MLB writer, sporting news, super duper card collector. I mean, I have to say, pleasure to have you on, Ryan. But the funny thing is, and not funny, but I follow your Twitter page, and you do something really cool. How you'll open up a pack, some junk wax or some pack that we grew up off of, and you put all the cards out, and you tell everybody, "Hey, do you have a story about one of these players?" It's really cool. How did you come about that?
It was very organic. It really caught me kind of off guard. There was one day, it was February. It was actually Valentine's Day, which is not great on my part that I was looking at baseball cards on Valentine's Day when my wife was upstairs. But I had found a box of 1991 Upper Deck at the first time I went back to a card shop in a long time, and it was like $10. And so I was like, you know what, let's buy that. That's a lot of fun. I opened up this pack, and I realized out of the 15 cards in the pack back then, I had stories about like 10 of the guys, and it wasn't just like, oh, he hit 320 or something. I was like, I remember this about this guy and this about this guy. I bet other people do too. So I just kind of put them all on the table, took just a little crappy picture with my phone and threw it on Twitter. And this is like 7:00 on a Friday night, right? Not exactly prime time. And I said, tell me your favorite story about one of these guys. And just replies just kept coming in. And just within like 15 minutes, there were 30 replies. And the thing that was so cool was there was a Griffey Jr. in that pack, right? His third Upper Deck card. It's pretty decent card. A lot of fun to get. The stories people had were about Milt Thompson, and they were about Mike Lieberthal. And nobody talked about Griffey because it was the time they met Milt Thompson at autograph signing. It was the time that, the Mike Lieberthal bobblehead in the office that was sitting on Dwight Schrute's desk. So, after about those 15, 20 minutes, I told my wife, I thought, I think I've got something here. I think people really respond to this. So basically, most every day since then, for a year and a month now, I've put some sort of pack out there. A lot of days if I find a couple packs I like, I call them bonus pack of the days or whatever. I mean, it's my thing. I can make up whatever rules I want, right? So it's great to see stories. And it's, there'll be like, this guy hit 2 home runs at the last game that I ever went to with my dad before he had a heart attack and died. And it's like, it amazes me how many like personal stories, like the connection that these people have to these players and these cards, it really was cool. So it's, and through what was really a crappy year for everybody, 2020, it was kind of that nice little daily pick me up to hear people's stories. And that's what really I love about it.
Yeah, it was. That's what caught me was, like you said, it wasn't just the cards. I mean, it's cool enough with the cards, but the backstories, because I think you posted one. It was Dennis Powell from the Mariners, and he's the most randomest pitcher ever. But I had a connection with Dennis Powell because I was at Yankee Stadium like I was most of my life. I grew up about 10 minutes away. So me and my mom, who was a diehard Yankee fan, we would just go to the game randomly. And it was like a day game one day. And we always got there early because she knew I'd want to get there and try to get autographs and get batting practice. And Dennis Powell, I guess, called my mom over. I guess he was trying to like kick it to her. And it was funny because I'm like, whatever, this 10-year-old kid or a 12-year-old kid. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? But I didn't know. And then as soon as I walked over, he goes, "Here, kid." And he just flung me a ball. And I still have it to this day. I wrote his name like in a tape thing over it. So it was like, I always had a connection to Dennis Powell because he was cool. And he just threw it, "Here, kid." And he just threw me a ball. So like every time you do that, I could probably, like you said, there's people all over that have their own little stories from it.
Yeah,
so it's a really cool piece. Yeah.
Yeah. Really I kind of just lucked into it. So yeah, but it's, hearing stories like that. I mean, that's the thing that's so great about baseball and the everyday nature of baseball. And, up until this last year, the accessibility of the players being right there in the stands. I mean, these players have a chance to make lifetime memories for kids and adults every single day. And that's one of the cool things about it. And that's, when we found doing this pack of the day thing, I get to see that a little bit of that every day.
It's great, man. Great stuff.
Yeah, it's really not. I mean, me and Joe often talk about how important, a lot of the role players are in baseball. It's not just about the stars, and especially guys in our generation where, we'll put players up on our social media that a lot of people may not really appreciate because, for one, we spoke about this, people nowadays that collect like 5 players, Tatis, Trout, Acuna. And, the cards is such an important part of telling the story, the history of the game. So for us, it's just amazing to turn it over. And, just that is really a special thing. Is so many people can relate to that. Just like the one guy, he just got a double out of nowhere. The guy was batting 160 the whole season, and now he just got a double at, whatever. So that kind of stuff, people remember. You went to that game. It's really, really great.
No doubt.
Brian, how did you get into the hobby? Obviously, was it something since you were younger, or did your dad or anybody, or it just came about where it was just something naturally came cards?
There were these little packs of baseball cards at the little gas station I would ride my bike up to sometimes, or I'd go to the grocery store with my mom or my dad, and you'd pick up one of these and you were like, oh, this is really cool, And I started with the 87 Topps is really the first one, and there's so many people that have that same experience. That was the set that they really started on. I may have bought a couple of packs in 86, but like looking back through the boxes that I had from a kid, some of them are still around, some of them aren't. There's not much evidence of 1986 cards. So that 87, I remember buying, saving up to buy an $18 box because the packs were 50 cents each.
Oh,
and
man.
36.
Yep.
And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I learned to, over those couple of years, I learned to ride my bike, one hand on the steering wheel, one hand like balancing the box of cards on there. So yeah, that 87 Topps was when I really started. I got a little bit of Donruss and Fleer, but they weren't at the gas station. The Donruss and Fleer weren't, so the Topps was really my bread and butter. And from there, I collected pretty hard until 93, 92, 93, and then I went to college and I forgot all about it.
Girl, because school girls, it wasn't cool anymore.
So much else. It was.
Yeah, you're going. What are you gonna go?
But it wasn't.
Yeah, it was like, what are you gonna go? Yeah, I'm going home to open a box of baseball cards. You're like, what?
Exactly. So there was not much of that.
No, it wasn't. But that's funny. You said that in terms of the time frame, and just imagine being on your bike as a kid. You remember those things, man. Yeah. I remember the same way. Just like chipping in with a friend to buy. If I didn't have all of my, hey, you have $9 or $8 or whatever, we'll go.
Yeah.
That feeling. And it's funny you said about the Donruss and the Fleer, because me and Joe talk about this. We both grew up in New York, and I couldn't find Donruss and Fleer anywhere in I was nowhere. Like I had cousins that live upstate, and they were like, "Oh, I got Fleer." I'm like, "What? Fleer? You got they were just like an hour and a half away." And I guess, but like where I lived, I never could find. If I found one of those like at a card show or somewhere, I was like, "Wow."
Well, yeah, and then they were like 75 cents a pack, and you're like, "I'm not paying 75 cents a pack. I could pay 40 cents or 50 cents for a top." So yeah,
that's true.
I didn't need the stickers. I'd rather have the gum. So,
was it one guy that you early on that you wanted to collect, or was the guy that your dude that you were like?
There was it's always kind of been this guy right here.
Wow.
Little Bo Jackson,
man.
Because just look, that card is just gorgeous.
It's such a great card.
It's
iconic
great card.
Such a great card.
So many good cards.
Future star, and you thought, oh my gosh, he's going to be the greatest thing ever. I grew up in St. Louis, and Bo was playing in Kansas City. Down there, and I remember one day, because I was such a big Bo Jackson fan, I had his cards. I had a T-shirt that was the big caricature of Bo Jackson. We drove over like 3.5 hours to get to Kauffman Stadium. We drove over there, sat way up in the bleachers just so I could go to a game and say I saw Bo Jackson play in person. So, and I honestly have no idea what Bo did that day. I don't remember any of it. What I remember most about the game was the stands. The upper deck at Kauffman was so steep, you felt like you were going to fall over if you stood up. So, but yeah, so it was Bo was a big one back then. Grew up in St. Louis. Cardinals were. Ozzie Smith was the guy that was like the legend, the legacy. So you got an Ozzie, that was a big deal, and Vince Coleman and Willie McGee and
man, what a team!
Those types of guys, yeah.
Ball players, that's what they were. But yeah, that Bo card is beautiful, even to this day.
Oh yeah, it's still the greatest.
We got to look up what a gem 10 goes for that with the Bo. I haven't looked.
It's a pretty penny.
It is.
It's a pretty penny.
Because I know that the football card went crazy out of nowhere. Yeah. The score, it just went nuts. You get that card for nothing back in the days, and all of a sudden it went insane.
2 years ago, you could have got it for nothing. Almost.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, yeah.
But that's a beautiful card, man. Now, when you used to see that the future stars and the different color writing and all that, it was just like, that was it.
It was the best. You know, I mean, you know, the rated rookie is really cool, but
yes,
because I started with that top set, the future star. I mean, I thought Tim Brzezinski was going to be the greatest player ever because he was a future star. Rafael Palmeiro. I mean, these guys.
Oh, forget it.
Well, I mean, Palmeiro was pretty good, obviously, but you know, those other guys were just because they were in that category with Bo. They got the same label Bo did. That meant they were as good as Bo, right? I mean, that's what 14-year-old Logic says.
Do you know how many Greg Jeffries cards I had? I mean, come on, man.
Well, you grew up in New York. You had a lot of.
And I was a Yankees fan, but you just Greg Jeffries was he was the natural. You know, with New York, he was just the guy that they thought was going to be. I mean, he was a good hitter. He had a good career, but I mean, nothing compared to what they thought he would be coming up.
The hype was crazy. Crazy.
I remember that Sheffield Future Star was a really good card, fun card too.
Yeah, the 89 Tops is that big old. He's just his face right in there.
Yeah,
I still like that. I actually opened that in the pack a week ago.
Oh, you did?
I was still very excited. Still very excited to get the Sheffield.
That's the great thing about it. It's just there's nothing cool about opening something from way back and getting that same feeling. Even if the card, like I said, even if the card's worth nothing. You know, it's just the feeling that a card that you wanted when you were a kid, if you open it now and as an adult, you kind of get that same feeling of remembering how you felt at that point, you know?
Absolutely, 100%. That's, you know, I've spent, you know, I haven't added up how much I've spent on junk wax in the past year because I don't want to know. But it's kind of chasing that feeling. It's that memory. It's, you know, there was talking about riding their bikes and balancing baseball cards. I was riding my bike home from a buddy's house. And I turned the corner in my neighborhood, and there was this little dachshund that was named Snitzel, and we hated Snitzel because he'd come out and bark at you. You know, he wasn't going to bite you because he was just all bark and no bite. But he came around, and I wasn't expecting him, and he startled me, and I dropped the box of cards and into the snow.
No.
I had in that box. I had gotten, you know, this is my St. Louis is showing here, but I got 3 Todd Worrell rookie cards.
Wow, Todd Worrell.
And they fell in the snow, and I was so mad. I went home and I was like, Mom, we got to go make Schnitzel's owners pay for my baseball cards. And my mom's like, yeah, we're not doing that.
Like, what are you talking about? You took it personal,
right?
Though. Yeah,
exactly. No, it was. Those are the memories that you still have, no doubt.
Yep, totally.
Such a great set. So many good cards. BJ Surhoff, Will Clark.
There you go.
The Barry Bonds rookie, which to me, you know, I just bought an 86 traded and a 9 because I have a bunch of them just ungraded. But to me as a kid, the 87, that Barry Bonds, that was his rookie. And I know the McGuire wasn't because he was in the, you know, the USA team in 86.
85,
But or the 85, right. But that's just an amazing set. BJ Surhoff, Rafael Palmeiro. Right, there's just a great design.
Surhoff card was great. I love that Surhoff card.
Yeah,
Barry Larkin was a rookie that year too.
Barry Larkin, amazing. And David Cohn. David Cohn's card's really nice. And I don't know if that's in traded, but I don't know. It's the same design.
Yeah, I think he had the regular. Now I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I actually just bought an 87 Topps traded set the other day because I never had one as a kid. So I was like, I'll pay $8 for one there now.
That's cool. Right? That's awesome.
It's nice. I put those in, you know, I have a couple from sets from that when I collected them as a kid, and 87 was one of them, and I do have it in a binder, and it's so awesome to just open those binders and look through it. It's amazing, you know.
Yeah.
Really fun. Really great.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, you have an emotional attachment to certain cards. I know I do that. Ones that I actually kept, you know, that are still relevant and worth something. It's like it's so tough to get rid of them. It's just because you know how hard you work to get them. I mean, really, just endless
like
packs.
The box. That was you know, you shoveled 2 driveways and you got a box of baseball cards. You know, it had connection. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. And you know, interesting. You said before, you know, you got them at the gas station. When we were kids, these cards were like ubiquitous in New York City. You couldn't go anywhere without getting baseball cards somewhere. And now it's crazy because I live in Queens, which is a baseball place for sure. You know, the Mets play less than 2 miles from where I live. The Yankees play 5 miles from where I live. Kids are playing baseball all the time. But unfortunately, you go to Target, there's no baseball card. And it's not just because of the flippers. people just, I guess there's not a lot of folks where I live. There's a lot of different people they're more into soccer maybe, which is great. But still, it's like, you can't find them anywhere. It's not just like you got to go to a store. Even if you go to the Target or the Walmart, it's hard to find. It's kind of annoying because we're talking about, they're going to make 90 million of, 2021 tops, but I can't get a pack for, it's kind of annoying, but what are you going to do?
It's crazy. There's so much about the hobby that's different from when I got back into it basically like a year and a half ago, and there's so much different right now than it was a year and a half ago. It really is just, it's mind-boggling, and some of it's good and a lot of it isn't. The lack of access to cards is not good. The prices for some of these things, you can't take 50 cents and go get a pack. Even Topps opening day, that's supposed to be like the accessible one, and those boxes are selling on eBay for $55-$60, and that's crazy. It's crazy.
Once they put the Louis Robert short print in there last, or was it? Yeah, it was 2020. Yeah, 2019 or whatever it was. And then it became a thing where it's like, okay, these are now, because nobody cared about opening day before. It was just like, opening day, whatever. Get them at Target. But it's nuts, especially with the flagship Topps now. The way people, it's like they make so many of these cards. You have to actually pull. We were talking about how, remember back in those days when you pulled that Bo Jackson, it was great. Anyone could pull the Bo Jackson. Nowadays, if you're looking for like the Ryan Mountcastle or the Alec Baum, you'll get one, and it's like, oh, that's fine, but it's not the gold one. It's not the black one, and it's
the
kind
base one,
right? So anybody could pull a great card in those days, and nowadays it's like, oh, you have to pull like the really fancy one, and it's kind of annoying. That's an annoying aspect of collecting nowadays. But
I was at the card show on the weekend, and I was sitting there going through a vintage. Me, I'll buy new cards and sell them and go buy old cards. That's just the way I do it, because I don't know. I'm especially in card shows, I go right to the old timers, and these guys just have like endless amount of cards. And me, it's not about like, I don't need to buy a Maze or a Banks. I could go there and buy like this weekend. I went in there and grabbed some Greg Nettles rookie.
Wow, it's nice.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
sweet.
Just Charlie Huff.
That's
awesome. So
awesome.
I just went in there picking around, and even this one is really cool. This is a 57 Brooklyn Dodgers team.
Oh, that's sweet.
Wow.
Yeah.
The last
really
cool.
Jackie, that's the last one right there. And it's just, I get more out of that. And I'm sitting there with this old timer, and he has a notebook, and he has 1953 Topps. It's all in pencil writing, and he has all highlighters everywhere. And I'm like, you making a set? And he's like, yeah, that's all I do. I just collect sets. He goes, I can't figure out with the new cards. There's too many of the same player. And he goes, I get this guy. If I got Maze, I got Maze. He said, but I understand what he meant. For someone from that era, I can totally relate to what he's saying. Hey, I complete a set. The set's done. There's no other cards in there that I need to get. So.
Yeah,
but that's part of the hobby.
I love that. I love that you got those rookie cards. That's kind of what I've started doing too. Because I didn't really have anything pre 86 until this year. I just didn't, because back in the day, why would you buy old cards when you can buy new cards? It didn't make any sense, right? So I've kind of wanted to get back into it, but I have a writer's salary. I don't have the money to be pulling on the big cards. But what I started to do is kind of collect these league leader cards. You can find them for cheap. Like this has got 4 Hall of Famers.
Oh wow.
Seaver, Necro, Jenkins, and Marichal. I got it for
That's
$2.
Beautiful.
Exactly. This has got Koufax, Gibson, and Drysdale. It was an 80% off bin.
What?
Right? Like, I don't care what shape it's in. I found this. You had that Greg Nettles. It was a Gary Carter rookie card, and it was like 20% off to $7.
Wow.
Dick Allen and Mike Schmidt. It's like. These are the
that
things
card
that,
is sick.
Sweet.
That card is,
isn't it? And it's actually in decent shape too.
Yeah,
which I didn't really even know. I didn't even look at the shape when I bought it.
That's the great part about it. You didn't even care, and then you come
I
home.
didn't care because I was like, it was $4 and it was 2. One Hall of Famer, one should be Hall of Famer for Dick Allen, but 2 iconic players. So that's kind of been fun. It's an easy way to get into it because I'm not worried about them being any good. I just want to get cards of the legit Hall of Famers when they played. that's been a fun way to do it.
You probably enjoy this
great.
one.
Oh wow,
Red.
that's awesome.
It's like you know what I feel like certain guys are such legends in the game that I mean, how many years? What was it? 60-something years? Oh man,
Pops Stargell. I did not go
Wow.
to the show expecting to buy a Willie Stargell, but for
Look at that uniform.
78 tops.
right? Yeah,
I love that set. I really do.
Oh yeah, it's
That's
really
great.
cool.
It's a-
That would be a set where like I wouldn't mind trying to complete just because the look. It's such a beautiful set, and it's not comparable to any other set either. That's what's great about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing for me more fulfilling than going to a spot and just going into the $1 between $1 $5 box and just coming home with a ton of, like I just did that in Pennsylvania, and I got Cookie Rojas, who always has the best glasses in the history of any baseball cards. You got every card that he's in, his glass is great. Just players that are really great players that nobody really thinks about anymore.
Yeah.
Willie Daves, 68 tops. Dave Parker, one of
Look
the
at that
greats.
card.
I mean,
Wow,
dude, I
that's a
got this
great
card
card.
for 50 cents. Look at this, a 79 Rusty Staub. Look, 50 cents. I mean, so I'll go spend a 68 Billy Williams. I'll go spend $30 and get 18 or 20 cards that I love. They go into a binder that I actually look at, not like, let's hide these away for 10 years and hopefully this kid gets into the Hall of Fame. I'm getting old. By the time these kids get in the Hall of Fame, I'm gonna be like 75 years old, man. I got to go with the OG. I got to go with the older players. I was thinking
The
about
guys
this.
who are
I gotta
already
just-
there.
They're already there.
For real. The blue chips.
true.
The blue chips.
But that's a cool way to
Yeah.
look at it. You spend $30 and get some really fun cards, or you go buy a 21 jumbo pack and spend the same amount of money. What enjoyment?
Exactly.
Not saying not knocking getting a pack of cards, but I'm saying you're going to get more enjoyment out of just going through a vintage rack with with all those legends in there.
Yeah, and you got to decide what are you spending your money for? Are you spending your money to try to make more money, which is fine.
Right.
That's great. Lots of people
Totally.
have a lot of fun doing that. I don't know. I want to enjoy it. I want to do it, and obviously you guys are on that same wavelength. I like that. That's good.
Oh yeah, I mean we talk about that all the time. Especially the state of the game. If you look, I was just watching today a break with the Prism, the new Prism basketball. It's $2,300 a box, 200 a pack. I mean, that's just insane. 200 a pack, 12 cards. It's unbelievable.
It's ridiculous.
Like, what are the odds you're going to make your money back? Let's just be real. Out of that box, maybe one or two of the packs, maybe you're going to get $200.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, you have to get your money back. You have to buy the whole box, and you probably have to buy a couple boxes.
True.
Because pack by pack, I mean, you're really, really hoping to get lucky.
Yeah. I was trying to do the math, and I was feeling bad for some dudes that were buying. And I was like, she kept. I was like, because
I know I've talked to a couple of card shop owners about that box specifically, and it's crazy. I mean, their cost is damn near $2,000 a box, and so it's not like they're marking it up. That's what they're paying, so they're trying to get it back, and then they're trying to figure out, well, do I try to sell it because or do I do a break with it? What do I do with it? So
what do I do with it? Exactly.
Yeah,
it's just luck of the draw with that. It's rough. What do you think about today with Topps being valued at $1.3 billion? They're going public. I heard. I mean,
I did.
Very
I
interesting time for cards right now with the whole thing with PSA and with the grading, and now with Topps. It's so much going on. It's so busy in the hobby.
Things are moving very, very fast, and I think some people are ready for that and some people aren't. And I'm curious to see how it goes, and everyone that talks to me about baseball cards, they, people on Twitter or my buddies or, family, they're like, what's going to happen? Is it going to continue the way it has? Is there a bubble that's going to burst? Because it can't keep going this way, right? It can't keep growing it the way that it has. And that money that it has, people are going to eventually stop having the money to do that.
Totally.
And I'm genuinely curious. I mean, like, does PSA and the kind of the shutdown they're going through right now, except for the high rollers, does that drive people to the Beckett grading services? Because PSA is kind of the king right now. You can get more money for a PSA graded 10 card than any other graded 10 card.
Yeah.
Does that change? If people are going to suddenly start sending the really good cards to Beckett, which is great for Beckett, do they pull even? I mean, because it's all about perception. That's what it is. It's perception. It's what do you want? What are you willing to pay for? That's what this whole market is based on, which is why it's crazy that it's gone the way that it has. So, and Topps going public. I mean, it's all very intriguing, but I don't know that anybody really knows exactly where it goes. I asked the card shop owner when we were talking about the grading stuff, and I was like, well, aren't you concerned that the market is going to be flooded with thousands and thousands more Barry Bonds 87 tops that grade a 10? And he's like, I'm not really, because the people that are going back through their old cards and pulling a Barry Bonds out of a box or out of a binder, those aren't 10s. He's like, what's going to happen is they're going to see that their cards come back and they're graded at 5 or 6, and they suddenly realize they thought they had this thing and they don't have it. So the market for 10s then stays kind of what it is. Maybe they even go out and decide, well, I really wanted a 10. Now I'm just going to spend to get a 10. And so that boosts the price up. So yeah, it's all very, it's going to be fascinating to watch what happens over the next couple of years. And I honestly don't know. I have thoughts, but I don't know what's going to happen.
Ryan, let me ask you a question about this. So I was looking into, Topps has been public before and it's gone private, I think in 2007. So it's not a new thing. But one of the main factors in Topps going public now are these NFT. What are they called? NFTs.
NFT.
Okay.
Non-fungible
tokens, yeah. Right? So I'm up on crypto and stuff, and I've seen people talk about the stuff on Twitter, but I didn't really pay attention. And then I read an article today where somebody spent $69 million on a JPEG file. And the whole thing of now Topps is interested in making digital cards and stuff. I just feel like people are spending absurd amounts of money on a lot of crazy stuff because I don't know, man. This is what a card's about. I mean, like, okay, I have this card in my hand right now. I own it. Yeah. The digital things like it's on my phone, or come sit down in my house and let me show you the one Mike Trout blockchain card that I have that no one has. It's so absurd, I think. Maybe I'm old fashioned. Like, I like Topps Bunt. I think that's cool. Yeah. I have that on my phone. The whole idea of a digital baseball card is intriguing to me. It's kind of cool, but it's just really crazy to me. I don't know. So that, to me, what are your thoughts on that? Like, that being a big factor in Topps doing that. Is there a big future in that stuff, do you think? I mean, to me, I just can't see it. I don't know.
Well, I'll admit I don't know a whole lot about what Topps is doing now in relation to that, but the whole NFT market, it's a little hard to wrap your brain around. I actually just did a story a couple weeks ago talking to Taijuan Walker, the Mets starting pitcher. He was the first major leaguer to release and sell an NFT. He donated to the proceeds to the Mets charity, and I kind of basically asked him, like, so if you're talking to someone who doesn't know what this is, how do you explain it to them? And I asked him a couple of basic questions like that, just because I feel like I had an idea, but I wanted to hear from somebody who was doing it. And I think that's where a lot of people are right now. A lot of people are trying to play catch up because you see NFT and you think, I have no idea what that is. And then you read the definition and you're like, okay, I still have no idea what that is. And then you read a longer story and you're like, hey, it still, what is going on? Why would somebody, like you said, why would somebody pay obscene amounts of money for this thing? Right. And that's really the question. And so, I mean, it's pretty clear that it is going to be a big thing, right? The question is who is it going to be a big thing for? Is it going to be a big thing for only the people who have crazy amounts of money and can spend $69 million on a JPEG? Or is there going to be a market that's accessible to other people as they want to get in and test those waters? And that's the question. And we're talking about the long-term growth and long-term health of the NFT market. I think that's a big question is how does that develop and allow people to come into the community? Because even though prices in the trading card hobby have gone crazy in the past year and a half, there are still a lot of access points. There are still access points. You can still get lucky and be at Target 5 minutes after they stock the shelves and get something. You can still go on eBay and buy it now auction and get a box of baseball cards for $50 or $100, whatever you want to spend. Even less if it's something like $91, and then you're basically paying shipping and they give you the stuff for free because it's not really worth a whole lot. So there's still access points and entry points for people, and I'm not sure where that comes with the NFT market. And that's not to say it's not there. That's just to say I don't know where that is, and I think that's going to have a lot to do with where that specific market and that element of the hobby goes.
I think that's true. And I think a lot of collectors, the traditional collectors are going to stay traditional. Everybody has their own lane. I feel like, there's a lot of younger kids and younger people getting into it, and they kind of follow whatever the trends are, which is understandable. What's the cool thing? Is the cool thing, the breaks is the cool thing. Panini basketball, maybe baseball is not as cool. And that's cool. I think that's fine. I think that's the way the world with anything. But I also feel like the traditional collectors are going to just say, I want to complete my 89 Donruss set, and I have 3 guys left, So I think there's a lane for everyone. And obviously, whatever someone chooses, that's what makes the hobby great, right? However you go about collecting is cool.
Absolutely. 100%.
You got to look at this. Me and Joe, I always like, I call them like third party cards, but I'm always into like cards that are not from the traditional, tops or here. So I have this Wheaties 1952 Roy Campanella.
Huh? Really?
It's actually it's a 7, but I mean, I looked through stuff. I love Campy, and I was like, how cool is that? Like, this thing came out of a Wheaties box. Like, and I go back and say, in the 50s, what person kept this card in this condition? Like, my mind always goes back to like the origin of it. To say, my uncle always tells me stories that he used to put Mickey Mantles in his bike and ride around with them or flip them, and I'm like, oh my God, like you could have like bought a beach house in the Outer Banks, but that was
you
the
wanted
50s.
To hear your tires go flip, 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 flip,
exactly.
Flip, right?
Yeah, and then the final nail in the coffin was, well, where did all the cards go? Oh, my mother threw them down the incinerator in the building. So you hear these stories. So to find things in certain, especially like something that came out of a Wheaties box where probably no one ever thought that would be worth $1, back then. I'm always intrigued by these type of cards. It's just cool, and I'm very nostalgic, and I feel like
absolutely.
Whoever kept.
I bought a couple of. I mean, it's not going back that far, but I bought a couple from an antique mall. They were like a little pack of like the Kmart All Stars, like 86 or 85 or whatever it was, and that was a lot of fun to look through. I mean, and the thing that's cool is like from that junk wax era and even before, there's so many Hall of Famers, and if you're looking for the nostalgia of it, and you can open a pack and get 4 Hall of Famers in a pack, even if it's not worth anything, it's still really cool, the ability to do that. I think I found some, I'm trying to remember what maybe like Kraft mac and cheese. Did Kraft have baseball cards? There was something I just remember cutting out of a cardboard box off the back of it. I found a couple of those when I was looking through some of my old cards at my parents' house a month or two ago. Because in my mind, we talk about, it's not just chasing cards that you want to buy, but it's chasing cards that you think you have, right? Mm-hmm. I found a box, like a little storage box that's labeled 93 Upper Deck SP, right? And you guys know what's in the 93 Upper Deck SP is Jeter, the one that's going crazy, right?
Yep.
And I looked through it, and as I'm looking through it, my hands are like shaking, trying to see if anything's in there. And there was no Jeter. There was like 3 Johnny Damon rookies, 4 Gary Thurman foil rookies, right?
Wow,
and then and I found an old binder, excuse me, that had like all the Griffeys and Thomases, and there was a Griffey from that set, 2 Thomases from that set, Bonds from that set, like everybody. So there's a good chance at some point I had a Derek Jeter.
Yep.
And the question is it at my parents' house somewhere? Is it hidden? Because there are some cards that I knew that I had. Like I had a 90 Leaf Frank Thomas rookie, right? And I had a couple other cards like that were like my really good cards, and I set them aside somewhere, and I just haven't found out where that is. So I'm hoping one day I'll stumble upon this box that's mislabeled in my parents' basement, and it's going to have this little thing that's going to have 2 of the Jeter 93 SPs, and then we can we can get those graded and sell them, and I don't know I have no idea what we do with the money. I'd buy a lot more baseball cards, but it would just be nice. So but that's kind of the chase and that I'm going for. And I've gone through my folks' basement a couple of times looking through different boxes, and I've yet to find it. I'm going to start I'm going to literally open every box in that basement.
Every box. It's the only way box. Your mind is going to be like,
exactly. That's the thing.
Right?
Like
Yeah.
I need to calm this down.
Yep.
Just to know that I did what I could.
Yeah, Joe. Speaking of the third party stuff, this is a card I bought. Not this one, but I bought a PSA 9 of this card for like I think around the same price, maybe $49. 73 Kellogg's Bob Gibson PSA 9. It's such a beautiful card.
Look at that.
I mean, it's such a nice card, man. Look at this card. It's really beautiful. I find stuff like that that's just so cool.
That's better than the 21 tops right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Please don't get me started with that. But yeah, that's just awesome. That stuff is cool. I remember Cons had some good stuff. The Cons hot dogs, and Drake's had stuff. I actually went. That's funny you were talking about that because I went to my parents' house, and I went through boxes recently, and I found some good stuff. Found a Griffey rookie. I found a few sets unopened. Like new sets that I guess my mom at one point was just buying sets because I had told her, "Hey, buy me a set." There's like a 91 in there, but it's cool to just discover that. Like, wow, there may be a box somewhere at my parents' house that has some stuff. I was dealing with that last weekend, and my wife was getting kind of mad because we had a couple of days off, and there I am just like burrowing through these boxes. A lot of it from that era too, the junk wax era. But it's cool. You said something before about the junk wax, like. Yeah, they say it's junk wax, but the great equalizer is like quality control. Quality control wasn't good then. So like you have to find the perfect Kirby Puckett rookie. It has to be absolutely perfect. And then there can't be any gum stain on it. And it couldn't have been the kid's bike. And it couldn't have been like some guy who's like, oh, my cards are all mint. No, it's not mint, So, even though they made so many of these cards, there aren't that many. I know there are a lot, but remember, PSA was way more lenient in the beginning of their grading. So somebody who sent a card in 94 or 95 to PSA of a Bo Jackson rookie, you probably could get an easy 10. Try to send that card in nowadays. It's not going to be like that.
There's pop control now. There is. I believe
that's a whole other thing.
Some guy was showing a Jordan rookie that he got graded recently as a 4, and he put it next to a 7 Jordan, a rookie from that you could tell was ancient, and it was like early PSA. The 4 was better than the 7. And, that's a scary side of things to say, okay, so your grading scale has changed that drastic in 20 years, 25 years or whatever it is. Or I don't know. When I saw that, I was a little, bothered a bit because it wasn't like, all right, one's a 6, one's a 5. You're talking about a 4 and a 7. That's a huge difference. That's a huge difference on a card that could change the money side of it. It wasn't like it was 86 tops something. It was a Jordan rookie, so an iconic card. So yeah, those things just bug me out in terms of the grading side of it, how things change. But
yeah, I haven't done a whole lot of grading, to be honest with you, because when I stopped in '93, I don't even know, was PSA doing it back then? I don't know when they started, but
90s.
I think PSA started early 90s. They're
early
like
90s.
They've been around longer than the other companies. That's why they get that premium.
Yeah.
I like the way they stack
I
up together.
I never did anything back then, and I haven't sent a whole lot of them in at this point either. And now I will be doing it for a while.
Getting grade. Yeah, 5 years. I started getting back in. I went to a Rail Riders game. I saw Aaron Judge play, and I'm a huge baseball guy, but I always have been. But I stopped buying every set. I'd pick up a box here and there, but I was like, let me get into Aaron Judge. And then I realized, wow, Aaron Judge already has cards. He has these fancy Bowman cards that I never even knew. He came out in 2013, so the whole game had changed. But just getting back into it, it totally night and day kind of situation from when we were doing it. And since that time is when I obviously got into grading. When I was a kid, I'd be like, are you serious? I got to pay $25 or whatever the equivalent would have been at that time to put my card in plastic. I looked at it like you're kind of putting the card to death. It's like now being entombed in a sense. And that kind of like intimidated me. But I kind of do like that in a way too, because it does protect cards that I love. So it's a weird thing. It's a new thing for me and to Joe too, because we were just seriously just collectors. We just love baseball so much and love the cards so much. And that's the whole thing for us at the end of the day. So like the grading thing is kind of, but it's interesting. It makes it more interesting the way the hobby is nowadays, I guess. And I kind of dig it a lot. It's kind of a nice thing, have a card that's guaranteed, like this is a good condition. It's a mint grade or near mint. It's nice to for my personal cards. Other
You're,
stuff.
you're securing it a little bit. Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're guaranteeing that it's with something you don't know what it's going to be, but yeah, and you're also not going to like accidentally step it or drop it. The corner's going to ding or something. So,
speaking of graded cards, and you'll appreciate this as a St. Louis guy, and Joe will appreciate this because we always talk about these. But I walked into this place in Pennsylvania, and sometimes you walk into a place and the perfect card that you're looking for just happens to be there. $100.
Wow.
PSA DNA, Ozzie Smith rookie. And like, to be honest, these were so tough. The 79.
Oh, those are so off-centered.
Let me tell you, man, like this one's not even that bad. I could get the dual authentication and get like maybe a 7 with the, whatever.
Yeah.
For me, Ozzie Smith, all those plays he made, the same hands touched this and signed this card at one point. So like that, cool. I love it. Like the guy's a legend.
Ozzie made one of the most amazing plays I've ever seen as a Padre. That one that went up the middle.
And he's jumping back. Yeah.
Oh my! Come on, that's like in history of baseball. I mean, televised where you could watch a catch in the infield was how he ever even got even close to that ball. To me, is insane. Really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we wanted to do something to finish it off. We always do is the quarter classics. We basically pick a card out of our collection that we love, whether it costs 5 cents or $5 or $50, just something that brings you to the card and has some sort of feeling about it. And I had to go. We were just talking about Drake's, and I had to go with a Greg Luzinski Drake's.
Wow.
And remember those horrifying uniforms that the White Sox had?
That is not a flattering uniform for Mr. Luzinski.
So that's what makes it even better, this card, is you have Greg the Bull Luzinski on a Drake's card with some horrible early 80s uniform. So that's my classic.
That is awesome, man.
You got anything, Joe? Ryan?
Ryan, go for it. Go ahead. All right, I'm just going to show... I don't want to show two because that's kind of cheating, but I want to just show you guys this Willie McGee Topps Gold that I think is incredible. Just look how awesome that photo is. But I got this in the same. Anyway, this is my quarter classic. 1976, Joe Torre on the Mets. Just he had that manager look then. Like that's that look he used to give Mike Mussina. Like, I don't know, man. Right? So I really...
That's great.
I love that. I love that stuff.
Great
that card was 50 cents. 50 cent bin in Spot and Scranton.
Nice.
So the best stuff.
Well, I did not grab the stack with my quarter stuff. I actually got I started doing the in addition to the pack of the day, I started doing the card of the day, which is basically kind of what you guys are talking about. It's like great pictures or funny pictures, and that I started doing in excuse me. I started doing in on January 1st this year, and I kind of had them all on the thread. And the first card I picked for that was the 1991 Studio Steve Lake, right? It's because he's with the Phillies and he's sitting there and he's got a parrot on his shoulder.
That's a classic,
That's classic.
What? Why does Steve Lake have a... And the funny thing is because I've done those in a thread and I've put every single one of them in the past one. On Twitter, when you're looking at it, you'll see like basically the end of the thread and the start of the thread, right? So every single day I get somebody else likes that Steve Lake or comments on that Steve Lake. The one I do have, and this is not, obviously not a quarter card. This is in decent shape, but this was my Griffey, right? It's embarrassing. I never had an 89 upper deck. I could never get one. My cousins had one. My buddies had a couple. I could never get it. I had this card out the wazoo. I had a lot of 89 Donners. I've opened probably 3 or 4 more of this card in the past 4 months, and every single time it's still that rush. It's still gosh. You're looking through and you can see, and the 89 Donners obviously very colorful top and bottom borders, and when you see like the corner of that purple one, you're like, maybe Griffey.
It has that color match to his card. It's just it's so perfect.
It's a good looking card.
Have you pulled any of those that look centered, like decent ones that may be gradable? Out of the Griffies?
Not that's going to come to a 10. I've pulled a couple that they're a little. It's not this one. This isn't one of the newer ones. This is one I've had for a long time. The ones that I've had are perfectly centered left to right. They're just a hair off top to bottom.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a little bit short up here. There's just a little less space.
Yep.
And because I've not done a whole lot of grading, I don't know exactly what that'll be. I'm sure it wouldn't come back at 10. But, I mean, the corner's sharp. Everything else is like perfect about it. So maybe an 8 or 9, but I don't know how much they take off.
You never know.
Centering issues. So
Yeah, you never know.
I just don't know. Yeah.
I got one of these loops at a spot for like $12, and it changed my, like I'm not a huge grading guy when it comes to, because especially now with what's happening at PSA, but I'll, with my old rookies, like if I can get a Willie, I actually have a nice Willie Stargell rookie and send that to PSA,
cool.
Bob Gibson rookie, I don't care what the grade is. I care that I own that card. But with newer stuff, if I have like a fancy Mike Trout or something I'm considering sending in, now I'm using that. And there are things that you'll just be like, wow, I didn't see that. This card, I mean, you'll just kind of, it's weird. You subtly know that a card's not perfect. And then when you look at it in the loop, you're like, yeah, okay. Your brain knows. So,
yeah.
Brain knows. Well, Ryan, man, listen, I don't want to keep you all night. We appreciate the time. This has been great. I know you're a real guy for the hobby. I know how much you love the hobby, and that's why we wanted you on. So we really appreciate you coming on the show and hope to have you again.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I could literally talk baseball cards all night.
Dave Parker, Hall of Famer, yes or no?
My heart wants to say yes. I'm not quite sure. He exceeds the standards of some of the guys who are in there. There's no doubt. If Harold Baines is the bar, then yes, Dave Parker is a Hall of Famer. But is Harold Baines really the bar? I don't know the exact answer to that question. I've had a Hall of Fame vote for 5 years, and it's every year it's agonizing. It's trying to figure out where that line is. A lot of people, when I do my Hall of Fame vote, I write a column that is explaining every single thought that I have about every guy, and it winds up being like 7,000 or 8,000 words long every single year, because I want to be honest and open and transparent about the thought process. I don't claim I've done a ton of research on every guy. I don't claim to know everything. I'm always open to knowing more. And I will say this about Dave Parker, because he's never been on the ballot when I've had a vote, and he won't ever be on the ballot that I have. I haven't done as deep of a dive into him as I have the guys like Scott Rowland or Larry Walker, or guys who are on the boat. Like, even Bobby Abreu, I haven't done as deep of a dive on Parker as I have on those guys. So when I say I don't think he's quite there, that's my impression, but I can't say with 100% certainty that he doesn't reach that bar, even though I don't think he quite does, even though I love Dave Parker. I feel bad saying that.
As far as like how, at the time when he was, what happened in the 80s, it was like, drugs at that point were like public enemy number one. Obviously, if he was a player now that this happened to, he'd go to rehab. We wouldn't talk about it after a month. Nobody would care. How much, I really appreciate the answer you gave, because that was really more of a thorough answer than I think anybody would really give when you asked. So I appreciate that. But like, how much, maybe not on you, but other people, how much does that really hurt his chances? You know what I mean? Like, to get in, is that like, in other words, if that never happened, and if Harold Baines is the bar, who knows? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I really appreciate that answer, because that's very thoughtful, and most people would just be like, well, yes or no, or this is that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fascinating topic to me that I always try to, like I said, try to be transparent with the thought process as I can, because that's all I ever wanted out of the people that were responsible for MVP awards or Cy Young. I just want to know why. Just tell me why. I don't have to agree. Just tell me why. So that's what I always try to do with that. And I mean, as far as the vote and his connection to that kind of stuff, I don't know. I'd like to think that it doesn't have a lot to do with it, but I think that it probably did to an extent. And when he comes up in committee votes going forward, does that change their attitudes? I mean, with the modern era committee and all these different ones, you know, it doesn't take. It's hard to get elected, but it doesn't take a lot because there's a smaller number of people. You know, it's one thing to try to get, you know, there's 370 PBWAA voters to agree on 75% of one guy. It's not as hard to get, 12-person committee, a 16-person committee, something like that, to get to 75%. Sure. So I mean, he still has a chance, and the more guys like Baines get in, the more that increases his chance of eventually possibly maybe getting in there.
It's interesting, very interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, man. I could pick your brain all night about this stuff, but
we'll do that
awesome
again a different time.
Definitely,
awesome.
definitely.
All right,
thanks, Ryan.
guys.